Welcome to Around the Mitten, and our today is our Good Friday installment with myself, Pastor Chris Lachlan, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, and my steadfast and stalwart colleague, Pastor James Smith. Pastor James, would you introduce our guest star for today?
Yes, good day on this Good Friday. We are here with Pastor Bridget Whately, who is from Sparta, but not the Sparta with the other basketball team that wears green. No, it's a different one. Please tell us who you are, where you're from for a minute or two.
Hi, I'm Pastor Bridget. I serve here at Peace Lutheran Church in Sparta, Michigan, which is just north of Grand Rapids.
Also, not the Sparta in Greece, because
Correct.
when Pastor James was talking about the Sparta, my brain did not immediately go to any kind of college. It went to
Right,
ancient
but
Greece.
there will be a lot of Greek in our discussion today, but that's all ahead of us, friends. So, Pastor Bridget, can you tell us about the real Sparta, the one that you're serving right now? Thank you.
So Sparta is, like I said, small town just north of Grand Rapids, known for its fruit. I have lots of fruit orchards, a couple miles away from the church. When I first got here, I was told if you ever pay for apples, you're doing something wrong because we have all sorts of apple farmers.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we opened up this series with some people who took an apple and didn't pay for it, but that's a different story. But today, we're going to a different tree, the tree of the cross. We're talking about Good Friday, and Pastor Bridget, I think you wanted to look at Gospel of John tells the story a little differently from Matthew, Mark, and Luke, or as we call them, the synoptics. Synoptic means with one eye, one view. And the reason they say that is John has kind of a different eye, a different view. So, what really stands out to you from the reading for Good Friday?
So, when we talk about John, we talk about in John, Jesus knows, has known. John 1 is in the beginning was the Word. Has known from the very beginning who he is and what he was sent to earth to do. Jesus is fully aware of his divinity and the fact that he is the Son of God. For many churches, on Palm Sunday or Passion Sunday, you read the accounts of Jesus in the garden, and we hear him praying in the garden in Matthew that, Father, please let this cup pass from me. I don't want to have to do this. But if it is your will, so be it. If it is your will, I will drink this cup. I will die. In John, Jesus' prayer, which we don't hear during Holy Week, we will hear another part of the year, is a prayer. Jesus is praying for his disciples, both his 12 disciples there, those who follow him, but then also the disciples and the followers that come to faith because of his original disciples. And he prays that they would be one and that they would be sanctified.
Yeah, I think that's an important point because it shows again what you're saying about him knowing what's going to happen, and it's like he's literally I think Pastor Chris and Tim like on our last episode like to think about it as his last will and testament. He knows what's going to happen. It's unavoidable. Honestly, he welcomes it. He talks about his hour throughout the gospel, and he's making arrangements for everyone rather than the somber uh, resignation, I guess you get from the synoptics. So I think that really colors how you hear this story. And I think you picked up a couple other instances you were going to share.
In the garden, after Judas has brought the soldiers to arrest Jesus, Jesus asks them, "Who are you looking for?" And the soldiers say, um, "Jesus of Nazareth." And Jesus answers, in the English, it's "I am he," but in the Greek, It's literally ego eimi, which is literally I am, which John has these 7 I am statements. I am the bread of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Those all start with ego eimi, which also harkens back to the divine name that we hear in Exodus when Moses is talking with God at the burning bush. I am who I am. And so Jesus says that in the garden 3 times. And Jesus continues to be in control throughout, even in his Jesus gets arrested and taken to Caiaphas and then to Pilate. And Pilate keeps telling him, why are you not answering? Don't you know that I have the power to crucify you or the power to let you go? And Jesus replies with, you have no power over me unless it's given to you from above or by another. Jesus has been in control. Jesus is in control. Pilate only has power over Jesus because power has been given to Pilate from God.
Yeah, I think one way I would put it is I heard a pastor once talk about a tough situation. And he was like, it is scary for all of us, but one thing we can trust is God is not losing any sleep over what's going to happen in this election or whatever. And I get that feeling throughout John's narration of the Passion too, is it's not to say like I don't think John's a fool. He knows how painful it would be for Jesus to be crucified. It's just he also understands that Jesus knew what was going on all the time and is like, okay, I can get through this because the end result is this uh, God's love for humanity that's going to save the world. And on Easter Sunday we know he's going to rise again too. So I think that idea of just the perspective makes such a difference. And we get kind of that God's eye perspective in the Gospel of John.
So the other thing that I noticed when Jesus dies in the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we're told that Jesus, breathed his last. He died or expired. Um, Whereas in John, it's he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Gave up, or the word paradidomi is delivered over or delivered his spirit. It's the same word that they use in chapter 18 when they talk about Judas betraying Jesus. Jesus delivers Jesus over to the soldiers in the garden. Jesus delivers over his spirit to God. It's a much more active, to me, a much more active version than he expired.
I think that's one of the questions I have for pastors here watching laity is how this makes a difference how we observe the day. Um, because I've in my experience, Palm Sunday is often a joyous occasion, even though um, Matthew, Mark, and Luke kind of end on, if we read the Passion that day, they kind of end on this, I won't say negative, but it's just a more somber understanding of the crucifixion, somber and sober understanding of the crucifixion. Whereas John, we hear on Good Friday, and Good Friday is often, in my experience going to Protestant churches at least, is like the most dour day on the calendar. And yet, I think John, based on what you've told us, Pastor Bridget, is trying to say something a little differently. So, do you think there are ways we can reflect that joy and confidence in Good Friday?
Jesus knew what was going to happen. In our pregame, I mentioned that, Good Friday is called good because it's good for us. It sucked for Jesus. But Jesus went into it knowing that good would come out of it. So we can take that and know in times in our life when things seem really rough, God's got a plan, God has us, and we can have confidence that good will come out of it in the end.
And in the end might mean after death, because Jesus still has to
Yes.
go through the whole crucifixion and dying thing. Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't pregame this, so I apologize. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. I just was meditating, thinking about it the other day, and the, Jesus is born, so Jesus will have to die. Like, because he was born, he would have to die eventually. And he chooses the plan, right? As Pastor James and I talked about in a previous episode, it wasn't that the father turned to the son and said, "Hey, what are you doing on Friday?" This was the plan from the beginning.
Right.
Um,
I was tempted to say earlier when you were talking about breathed his last versus gave up the spirit, like it's not like this is roadkill here. Like it's
I,
very choreographed. Anyway,
Yeah.
Pastor Chris, it sounded like you were about to say a little more.
no, I just this was an act of choice on Jesus's part, and it isn't just a death; it's a truly terrible death. In some ways, the worst death that they could imagine. Um, and Jesus still goes through that and then comes out on the other side. But and one of the things as a preacher I've heard preachers debate about, right? When you preach Good Friday, do you preach it as though you're in the moment, you're one of the disciples, and you don't know what's coming next? Or do you preach it as someone who knows that the resurrection is coming? And I see arguments on both sides, right? Because Jesus has been telling us all through the book, I will suffer, I will die, I will rise. Well, I will be raised in the synoptics, I will rise, right? Jesus says in John, I have the power to lay it down and I have the power to take it up again. I think that's John 10. But sorry, we didn't pregame any of that, so I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. Just things I've been thinking about as I think about preaching Good Friday.
Well, you certainly give us a lot to think about, and I think that idea of uh, God in control, I actually think that might be a really good message for this year. Um, I haven't really gone that route before, but I may do that this year. So thank you. Um, we also wanted to ask you on a lighter note, and it's hard not to be lighter than talking about the biggest moment in our faith, the crucifixion. But there is no transition. Uh, where are you finding joy these days?
I'm finding joy in my Sunday night D&D group. Almost every Sunday night, I get to go downtown to a board game restaurant for their open tabletop role-playing game night, and I play D&D with 7 or 8 other people, and have been doing so for a little over a year.
That sounds like a lot of fun,
Yeah.
actually.
Now you play a character that's very different from your job, right?
We pre-gamed this. He's cheating. Go ahead, Pastor Bridget.
No, if you talk to my colleagues here in the Grand Rapids conference, um, my character is a cleric, druid, paladin. That's actually the closest thing to what I actually am.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Between the D&D and the religion and the martial arts.
There you go.
Oh,
Martial
wait.
arts. You need
Say
to
more
share
about
more
the
of that.
say more about the martial arts, Pastor Bridget. We don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So yeah, that's another thing that brings me joy. I am a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Wow.
Um, and so yes, the I also combine this in over the summer. There's a camp that I go to and volunteer at. It's a LARP camp, which is live action role
Right.
play. again, D&D and martial arts.
Amazing. Well, folks, Pastor Bridget has delivered you the full package today at Around the Mitten.
Really.
On behalf of her, you are welcome, and we wish you a holy, a blessed, and yes, a good Friday as we prepare for this very holy and very meaningful time of the year. And Pastor Bridget, we are so thankful to you for helping us do just that today.
You're welcome.